All right, hey everybody. So if you're watching this screencast, then you are at station 3 and you are ready to talk about symbolism and allegory. You will need to take some notes on the top part, and then you're going to be working together as a group to fill out the bottom part. So I am assuming, I hope, that you have probably heard of symbolism before, though it might be kind of new, the actual process of finding symbols in the text. When we think about symbols, and this is the part that you will want to write down, symbolism is when an object represents something larger than itself. Okay, when an object represents something larger than itself. When we think about that in the most basic terms, we use symbols all the time to help us understand things in a quick way. So if you just think about driving, like you'll all be taking your driver's test sooner than I want to picture, we think about all the symbols that are on the road, right? Red, yellow, green. So we know that red means stop, green means go, and yellow means speed up to get through the light. Just kidding. Slow down, kids. Slow down. Safe driving. So symbols, we use them all the time. And authors are going to use them too. When they want you to figure out that something is important, that there is an important concept there, but they don't want to state it outright, you have to think about it for yourself. That's symbolism, okay? When we think about that, if I'm writing a story about a person who has been in prison and they're looking out the window, imagine they have a window in their cell, and every day there's a bird that comes and sits on their windowsill, that bird is going to be a symbol of something. It's reoccurring, it's showing up all the time, and we see the prisoner who is watching that bird. That bird is probably a symbol of what? I hope you're thinking freedom, because that's what the bird would be symbolizing. Now, we're going to talk briefly about this thing called an allegory. This is completely new. And to be honest, we're not going to read an allegory next year or this year. You will read an allegory next year, but you need to know what it is. An allegory is a story that actually uses symbolism. An allegory is a figure of speech in which abstract ideas and principles are described in terms of characters, figures, and events. It is used to teach or explain an idea or a principle, like a moral or a lesson. So a lot of times we think about allegories, we think about stories that teach morals like the tortoise and the hare. They represent something larger, the whole story, okay? The tortoise represents someone who is patient and productive and takes his time. The hare represents someone who just speeds through things and is cocky and conceited and doesn't think, okay? So the difference here is that an allegory uses symbols, but it's a complete story that uses symbols. The whole story stands for something, okay? So if we're reading this, an allegory is a complete narrative that involves characters and events that stand for an abstract idea or event. A symbol, on the other hand, is an object that stands for another object, giving it a particular meaning. Okay, so it's a whole story. Symbolism does not tell a story, okay? So if you're looking at a movie and the movie is making a commentary on something, and like, let's say a certain character represents greed and a certain character represents human kindness, that might be an allegory, okay? But again, we're gonna focus on symbolism. So on your next page, not on your next page, at the bottom of your page, I want you to think about these common symbols and what they might represent. So I did one for you. If you see a dove, okay, that's going to represent peace. So I want you to think about, okay, if I'm seeing the color red in something, what's that represent? If we're thinking about clouds, primarily dark clouds, what might that represent? So I gave you common symbols. And then I want you in your group to come up with 2 more symbols and then what they might represent. So listen, I'm not talking about traffic signals here, so do not use green light, red light, yellow light. Come up with something of your own, okay? So make sure you have your notes, and then as a group, you're doing these symbols, okay? That's symbolism and allegory. Bye.